thank you for this morning. We thank you for the speakers, Lord, that will take part in this meeting today. Father, we pray that everyone here will receive, and we thank you that all will be done decently and in order. Father, we bless this food. We thank you for this food, that this food will nourish our bodies and it will not harm us. We give you praise and we give you thanksgiving. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right. You may be seated. Thank you, Reverend. Okay, let's get right into our meetings because we have a number of keynote speakers that have other engagements, and I asked them to be able to come to this meeting because it's very critical that they are a major piece to the puzzle for preparations for disasters and emergency responses. And so before I bring up my first speaker, I just want to acknowledge that this council has made a decision that we needed to have a new chief. The current chief, or the previous chief, which was Chief Jacqueline Seabrooks, has opted to go and gain employment somewhere else. But this council needed someone else that had leadership, continuity, and longevity in the Inglewood Police Department, and so the council adopted the acting chief, Chief Mark Frattarata. So give him a hand, please. And so at this time, I want to do the segue for the police department, that you talk about emergency responses when you need to come to your neighborhood for other issues, but we're going to concentrate this time on you being prepared for emergencies such as natural disasters. So at this time, I'm turning it over to Acting Chief Mark Frattarata. Chief?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Councilman. This is very appropriate that we speak about disaster preparedness as such. The police department, I know the fire department's here as first responders. You see us a lot of times in calls for service, and rightfully so. We get there as expeditiously as we can, and hopefully we service your needs to the best of our abilities and to your satisfaction. I do want to indicate I have an assistant officer over here, Nancy Ladner, if she could raise her hand. She's also, a little bit of history about her. She's also her parents and grew up in District 4, and they still live in that district, and she is married.
Good district, right?
And she's also married to one of our firemen here in the city that services our city. So she's a well-trained officer and good first responder. In talking about in the overall theme of disaster preparedness in this meeting, which is very appropriately called by the councilman, it's important to remember, first of all, that we as first responders in a natural disaster may not necessarily be able to get there in a quick time, much like we do when we respond for calls for service, because it's a different situation. Roads may be damaged, we can't get to your location. We may have to deal with other crises in immediate areas and securing the overall safety of the city, whether it be working with our partners in gas and electric and water and power, fire department obviously, to control a very dangerous and volatile situation. But with that said, and I know that the fire department, and I'm sure my colleague here will be talking about some CERT classes that will be up and coming, which stands for the Community Emergency Response Teams. That's very important because that way you become personally involved. And I know there's some dates, and this material I know is being passed around by the fire department, but in terms of, it's out on the front desk there, some courses that are being offered on June 16th, the 23rd, and the 30th. Has anybody attended the 16th class, the CERT classes? Oh, wow, we've got a few folks in here. That's great. That's good stuff, and that helps you to self-sustain yourself initially in the event of whatever the disaster may be. I'm going to specifically concentrate my presentation time on, appropriately so, earthquake preparedness. And that's something I'm sure everybody in this room is fully aware of. We've all experienced this. I'm sure everybody in this room was around when the Northridge earthquake struck. And there is some material I'm passing around. We were a little bit limited on this material, so I've been trying to have it so that at least down to couples, and I know Officer Ladner will pass out if anybody's still needing some of that literature, and it deals with earthquake preparedness. It's this handout right here, if anybody needs one. I also have some in Spanish, if we need those as well. So Officer Ladner, if you could take care of those folks who are in need of that. And if you could share it, I'd appreciate it. This material is also online through the California Earthquake Authority website. And it's a PDF file, so you can download this material. But one of the things, again, to fully be prepared for is that, again, we probably won't be able to get there initially. So it's important that you're prepared. And there's in this handout material in a nationally recognized earthquake preparedness system, there's a 7-step process that's outlined, and there are 7 steps that you should take. And certainly, number 1 is securing your space. For those of you who experienced the Northridge earthquake, as you remember, I'm sure things were falling over in your house, dishes and so forth probably coming out of the cupboard, so you had broken glass in your kitchen area, etc. Objects falling. I remember specifically a bureau fell over in my daughter's room and she was trapped inside, and that created a whole sense of panic. So with that said, it's very important to secure items in your household, whether that's by straps or the putty that they recommend. Certainly in your cupboards, having those locking devices that you can press in so they don't fly open and all your dishes go flying out and all over the place. But coupled with that, one thing I learned, and I still do to this day, is keeping an old pair of tennis shoes by your bed with a flashlight, because you're probably going to lose power. And we had a lot of people with cut feet from glass and broke stub toes and all this kind of thing, because you're going to have no lighting power. And if you're barefooted, it happens, in the middle of the night, you jump out of bed and you're running around, and lo and behold, you're going to step on some glass and stub your toe or whatever the case may be. So to this day, I still keep an old pair of tennis shoes by my bed with a flashlight in it. It's important to check that flashlight occasionally, make sure those batteries are still good, and have some spare batteries on hand, because we're going to probably lose power right away. So secure your space in a multitude of ways. We all know with the water heater, you got to put straps on there and keep that. And I'm sure the other presenters will talk some of that, but I just want to touch upon some of those things. I can't emphasize that enough. It's really important. And I'm sorry to say, I just recently looked at a survey put on by the Department of Homeland Security. Across the nation, we recognize a lot of these natural disasters, the potential of them, and the things that can be caused by them, but only about 50% of people in the country really prepare for that. So we need to increase those numbers and the self-awareness, and take those measures to secure our own safety and the safety of our loved ones. Particularly, again, the fact that we may not necessarily be able to get there in a quick amount of time. In addition to that, it's have a plan. I mean, it's so important. If you have medical conditions, to ensure that you have medicines available to yourself and your loved ones for an extended period of time. Ensure that you have water, that your important documents are secured. I like to keep mine in the refrigerator in a plastic bag in case of fire too, because and that could be, you could also have a fire in one of these situations. Have a fire extinguisher on hand. In the police world and in tactical senses, we call what we have rally points. Have a place where your family members can go to and meet in the event you have an earthquake in the middle of the night, or any time for that matter. Have contact numbers outside of the area, so with other loved ones or relatives, say in another part of the country. So if you're separated or it's in the daytime and people are at work, they can call those numbers, and you can be informed that your loved ones are secure, because that's also obviously a sense of need there. in addition, again, I mentioned medical supplies and so forth. Be sure that you're prepared in that sense. Your water heater, again, I'm sure the Water District will talk about, there's a good source of water. And if my memory serves me right, it's about 1 gallon a day per individual that you'll need to survive on your own. And then have prepared disaster kits. You know, it's the third element of this. You know, have a first aid kit in hand. How many folks in here have attended CPR training or certified? Very good. That's excellent. Very, very good. Yeah, that's a must. And it's good that you're conscientious about that. In terms of, need my glasses here a little bit. Maybe storing a little bit of food. You know, having, I actually keep what I use is an old trash can that I've sealed up, and I put a variety of things in there, and I look into that every 6 months, refresh things, replenish things, so that in the event of an earthquake, in this case, I'll have those materials on hand. Additionally, strengthening of your home. You know, as we all know, earthquakes certainly can go up and down, but they mostly shake side to side. And if if you have a weak foundation, or you need to shore up some things with some metal attachment bolts or et cetera in the framing of your house, that's something that you should do. Also, having earthquake insurance. I know that's kind of a little bit of a controversial one, but I know that every insurance carrier has to offer earthquake insurance. And I mean, that's probably your biggest investment. And, you know, God forbid if something was to happen to that, it would behoove you to have the insurance to cover that. So, but that's a personal choice. It's just a recommendation by my part to secure your greatest asset outside of your loved ones. So after the earthquake strikes, it's certainly important to first and foremost check yourself, make sure you're okay. Check your loved ones. That includes, and then you get into your pets, your animals. I'm sure we all have, a lot of us have those. And then, immediately too, check for gas leaks and water leaks and things of that nature. Again, to the front of this, make sure you have the tools to shut those things off, because that's really important, particularly in the gas leak area. And also have a network. And having been here for 30 years, I know, and I've spoken with many block clubs, and that's the lifeblood of this community, the people in it and the block clubs. That's the partnership we've had with the police department, and we've enjoyed for many, many years. And I know I've gone to many of your block club meetings, and I still enjoy attending those to this day. But also the network within your own communities, within your own neighborhoods. That's so important, because you obviously want to check on them. If you know your neighbor is perhaps not well or in a wheelchair or something like that. So extending that hand out to your neighbor and doing the neighborly thing is always important. And I know just by the sense of the people in this community and the block clubs that are pervasive throughout it, over 240 of them, that is a good thing. And Councilman, I know I'm getting up on my time here. And again, probably the biggest thing I want to emphasize in closing out this section, and I'll certainly take some questions, is have a plan, be prepared, and I'm a firm believer that brings a sense of calmness and confidence, and that's part of leadership. Leadership takes all different fronts, and being ready is a part of being leadership, because you're the leader of your household, and it's very, very important, particularly if you have young ones, and to your neighbors, that someone has some sense of what needs to be done here. We're organized, we've thought of these things in advance, and we're prepared to do these, to deal with an earthquake. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I know he referenced the earthquake, but I also want to think about city of Inglewood, as well as the item I'm going to share with you in a little bit, has to do with high winds. people take for granted, but how many of you have trees in front of your house or on your block? How many of you have power lines on your block? Those high winds hit a tree, there goes your power lines, and there you have a problem. Can you even get off your street? Obviously, you may not be able to drive. Can you walk? Is it safe to walk? Because the power lines may be hot and now on the ground, and if it's wet, all of a sudden now we have the streets now becomes a conductor. So those are kind of things that we're here to talk about. And what better way to do that than having one of our own who actually is a captain of the Los Angeles County Fire Department, and his station regularly is right there at 108th and Crenshaw. And so I've known Captain Burton for many years, and he has always been there for our community in our hours of need. And at this time, I want you to keep those thoughts in mind that is shared with you, and help me welcome Captain Brent Burton. Captain?
Well, good morning. Everybody well? Yes. Outstanding. You know, Chief, the police chief just covered a lot of good things and good information. And what we want to do is kind of segue to some of those things that he talked about. But the first thing I want to say is, by you being here, that's the first step. Do you realize that, right? Because look around and see who's not here. And because you went here, you came here today, if something were to strike this afternoon, people are going to run to your house and say, well, you went to that meeting, what are we supposed to do, right? That always happens, doesn't it? So I want to commend you all for being here, because it shows us that you are concerned about disaster preparedness. We must commend Councilman Franklin for putting this on. I think these need to happen once a quarter so all residents of the city can come and hear this good information. Now, we talked about, he just mentioned about power lines, which is very interesting. Power lines cause a lot of fires. I'm not sure if you know that. When the winds do blow, there's a lot of trees. And when the trees go down, the power lines go down, they can start fires. How many of you have shake shingle roofs on your home, or know of somebody around the corner or down the street that has one? Yeah. Yeah, we had a fire not too long ago right off of 102nd and 7th Avenue that started in the grassy area, came up the hill, and got on top of the shake shingle roof. And fortunately, I was on scene, and we got right on top of it right away, because we did not want to have a 1985 Baldwin Hills fire situation that I was on when I was an Explorer Scout and saw that devastation. So we want to make sure we're on top of things right away. How many of you are familiar with your neighbors? Very familiar with your neighbors. One of the things that we see, and by the way, I've been here in Inglewood since day one. We took over the Inglewood Fire Department in October of 2000, or as we say, we annexed in the Inglewood Fire Department to the county in October 2000. And I went over to Station 170 now at 108th and Crenshaw, and I've been there ever since, and I love the city, and I love working here. And so it was no-brainer for me to say, hey, I got to go to this town hall meeting and come here today. But what I do notice on all the incidents that we respond to, that very, very few neighbors, especially our younger population, don't know our neighbors. Now, you all are a more seasoned group. Just look around. Notice I didn't say old, Gerald. I said seasoned. You are a very seasoned group of folks, because you come from the era where everybody looked out for one another. That's not happening today. You know, it's the old deal where garage door goes up, car goes in, garage door goes down, I'm done. And I might wave to you because you look familiar, even though I've been here 3 or 4 years. So we need to make sure that we know our neighbors, because guess what, folks? Like the chief said, in the event of a natural disaster, we are not coming. It's not because we don't want to come, because we're overtaxed. And that is what the definition of a disaster is. When your normal resources are beyond their limits of controlling a situation. That is a disaster. Right now, if an incident occurred in the city, a shooting, a stabbing, an assault call, or major traumatic incident, we're on top of it. Police and fire are right there. Got it. In the event we have over 100, 200, 300 folks that are injured all at the same time, we have to start calling in for more reinforcements. And in the event of a natural disaster like an earthquake, it's beyond the resources that we have on duty, because these things come infrequently. We don't know when they happen, and when they do, they hit real hard. And that's when our natural resources, our public safety services, are overtaxed. Somebody keeps playing the piano back there. Who's that? Oh, okay. There's a little piano music there going on. Okay. think your neighbors are mad at you, sir. You may want to do something there. But anyway, we need to make sure that you are familiar with the people on your block. Know who is invalid, know who needs assistance, knows who can't get around, and those are the folks that you have to check on. Those are the first priority that you should make, are those people that can't get around for themselves or help themselves. That's our first line of defense that you have to help. The reason we're not coming is because, again, this is what happens in a real earthquake. In the fire service, when earthquake hits, we're in your community as well. We're 24/7, we never close. So we get rocked too in the fire station. We have emergency generators in our fire station that keep our power on, though, so we're lucky. So our power stays on in most cases. In most cases, not every time, but in most cases it stays on. And then what we have to do is pull our fire trucks out of the station. We do a check to make sure our gas is not leaking, our water's not broke. And once we secure our station, we lock it down, we're in the street. And we are on a route. And all of our stations have a pre-designated earthquake route that we check. And what we check for in our area, 108th and Crenshaw, are the first place we go to are all the schools. We're going to drive all the schools, and we make sure that those schools are intact. Then we have some mid-rise buildings on Imperial Highway that are kind of tall, UHP and Citibank building. We check those buildings, okay? And then from there, we just do a cursory cruise through various areas and communities where apartment houses are, in that order. Now, in the event somebody runs out and flags us down and says, hey, I got somebody that's a life-threatening emergency right here, we stop, we go and evaluate, we go, yep, we got to do something. We're committed. That's how it works. All of our fire trucks, the same thing happens. We are committed to the first life-threatening emergency that we come across. Because when the lines are down, the systems are out, you just can't call 911 and say, I want service. Because it's not going to happen. Because all of the lines are out and they're all down. So that's how we respond. So if you're lucky to have a police officer or a police car going by and you flag them down, you're lucky. Or the fire truck, you're lucky. If not, guess what? It's on you. It is on you. Our way of life that most of us were growing up in has changed. It is changing. You know, how many of you 40 years ago used to just store water and foods for earthquake supplies? Can you remember doing that? Some did, but not a lot of people. Today, that's what we're talking about. The chief talked about the earthquake list, and outside on the table, they do have an emergency preparedness checklist. All the information is there. Now, what we also handed out was a book. And if you didn't get the book, we have some out there, and there's also some on the table. We'll make sure you all get one. We bought about 90 books. But it's called the County of Los Angeles Emergency Survival Guide, ESG we call it. This ESG book is very comprehensive, very comprehensive. Our department, the LA County Department of Emergency Services, put together this book, and it has everything in it. Everything you need, what the chief just mentioned, what we're talking about, everything is in this book that you need to know. And we will make sure you get one before you leave. There's some on the tables, but we'll make sure definitely you all get one. If you don't, we have them at our fire stations. And speaking of fire stations, how many of you are intimately aware or know, well, not intimately, but how many of you really know who your firefighters are? You know who the captains are on all 3 shifts at your fire stations. Can anybody raise their hand and say they know? All 3 shifts. You just know me. And you owe me $20, by the way, too. I want it back. I'm just kidding, Lisa. That's what we're talking about. In the fire department, we operate on a 3-shift system, A, B, and C, 24-hour shifts. And it's very important that you know who the company officers or captains are at your fire stations. The captains are in charge of the fire station on that day. And you need to know who they are. You need to start building a rapport with them. Come to the station, invite them to your block clubs. Invite them to your block club meetings. Start a meeting, say, we want you to come and talk to just my block about what we need to do. We'll do that. We'll be happy to do that. If you can't reach anybody because they're out on calls, you call me, okay? And I'll give you my phone number. You can call me. Okay, but it's important that we start bridging that gap between the fire department. See, people think of the fire department as the peacetime army that no one thinks about until a disaster or fire strikes and you need us. And when you call 911, a red truck with some people better just show up right now and make it happen. Make it go away. Make it get better. But when the doors are down and we're in there doing what we're doing, and there's no secret what we do, we take care of the place. When we're there, we invite you to come and knock on the door because that is your fire station. It's not mine. It's not the county's. It's your fire station. That is a fire station in your community where your first responders come. How many of you have first aid kits at home? Okay, very good. Now, be honest, honest with me when I ask you the second question. How many of you know how to use what is in that first aid kit? And you're very clear. Okay. Now, next time I'm going to have you bring your kit and I'm going to give you a test. Because what we find is people open their first aid kit and it's about 10 years old and stuff is just falling apart or decrepit. The Band-Aids are all crinkled and everything. Or they go, okay, now what? They start doing this. You ever seen that happen? They do this. The first aid kit will not talk to you when you open it. It won't say, okay, for this situation, use me, use this. You have to understand how that works. And if you don't know, bring your first aid kit to the fire station and ask the firefighters to go over what's in there with you. How many of you have fire extinguishers at your home? Okay. How many of you have a fire extinguisher that's over 3 years old? Yeah, we service fire extinguishers annually. Not us directly in the fire department. Don't bring your extinguisher to the fire station, but when we go out and do an inspection on a business or an apartment unit, we always check the tag on that extinguisher and make sure it's been serviced every year. And every week on the fire truck, we have bigger extinguishers. We make sure that we service those. We invert them. Make sure all that powder in the extinguisher doesn't cake on the bottom, because that's what happens. If your extinguisher has been sitting in your back porch or in your kitchen under the sink for 10 years or 15 years, and you'll be, yeah, it's still there, I'm safe. Well, guess what? You go to use it and poof, nothing happens. You know why? Because it hasn't been serviced. All the powder cakes as it sits, and you don't move it, it just sits and cakes up, and now it can't dispel out when you need it. So you have to turn it upside down, shake it a little bit, make sure it's loose, and put it back. That's what we have to do. But what you can do is look in the yellow pages under fire extinguishing companies and have them service it. Take it to them, or they can come to you. And that's what needs to happen in that case. Now, something that's real important that's going to help you with this disaster preparedness seminar is a CERT class. How many of you have been through the CERT training, Community Emergency Response Team training? See, 1, 2, 3. Okay, well, sir, we showed up, but we didn't really do the class. Okay, we had a CERT class scheduled for last weekend to start, and only 10 folks showed up. We need to have at least 20 people to start the class because it's more, you get more out of it. So what we did was we postponed and rescheduled the class to start on July 14th. And we have flyers on the desk outside that talk about the CERT class. Now, what is CERT? CERT is a free training class that helps prepare you to be an emergency responder in the event of an emergency. It was started in 1986 with the City of LA Fire Department. Now it's adopted nationwide through FEMA. And we do these programs through the fire service for the community. Once you're done with the program, and it's going to last for 3 weekends, we can either do it one of two ways. We can either have 3 consecutive Saturdays from 9 o'clock to 4 o'clock, or we can do 7 weeknights, 1 day a week, from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. So what we found is that folks prefer a Saturday class. And so we'll do more. It's not the only one. It's not going away. But we can do more classes. But right now, on July 14th, at 9 o'clock in the City Hall Community Room is where our first class for this section will be for 2012. And we go over a few things. We go over disaster preparedness, what it is, what to do in the event of a disaster, how to use a fire extinguisher. We actually have live fires that you can put out with an extinguisher. It's all safe and controlled. We go over medical operations. So in the event you come across somebody that is injured, what to do with them, basics, bandaging, things like that. We talk about light search and rescue, where if it's a situation that's safe for you to enter, to go and do a search for somebody, you can do so. But we don't recommend if a building is totally compromised, you go in there, we don't recommend that, because if a tremor hits, the building comes all the way down, now you're gone. We also talk about team organization, how to organize yourself and the people in your block, in your community, okay? Because that's one thing that we have to do is organize ourselves. We talk about terrorism, disaster psychology, and toward the end of the class, we do a review and a simulation. And after the class, you get a certificate, and now you are trained in what to do in the event of an emergency and the fire department is not there. That's pretty much what CERT is, and it's free. Now, the class is going to happen on July 14th. Daniel Rodriguez is the city's emergency services coordinator. His email is on the sheet here, or his phone number. Please call him or email him. And hopefully we can have a lot of people here for the next class. That's what we need to do. Okay, a couple more things before I step down. Phone numbers. Now there's a Inglewood government directory sheet. Did everybody get one of these sheets here? Okay, now we talked about knowing your fire stations. The sheets are on the front table. Knowing your stations. We would like for you all to figure out, or no, you can just ask me, I'll be here to the end, where your address is, and we'll tell you what fire station covers your area, and we'll point it out to you. That's the station we'd like for you to visit and get to know who the people are that work there. But I'm going to give you another phone number in the event of an emergency. Now, we all know we dial 911, right? What happens when you dial 911 from the cell phone? Where does it go? It usually goes to CHP. They're working on trying to get it localized. But when it goes to CHP, what happens? They have to figure out where you are, what city you're in, and get the proper resources to you. So by the time they figure out that you're in Inglewood and get it to Inglewood PD, time can go by, the call can get dropped. Or if your battery's not charged up, you have so much time, you know how that goes. So I'm gonna give you a 10-digit phone number. If you know you live in Inglewood and you know you need the fire department or the paramedics, I'm gonna give you this number to write down. It's area code 323 881 2455. 323 881 2455. Now that is the phone number to the LA County Fire Department Dispatch Center. You go right to us with that number. And what I have that number is programmed in my cell phone. So if I need the fire department, I'm driving away from the station or off duty, I just punch in fire, and that number comes up, and I call the dispatchers and report a fire or an emergency. And you get the paramedics and the fire department, because you know we do both, right? The paramedics are the fire department. Okay, as long as we're clear on that. Okay, so you have the registry here, you got the directory here, so make sure you know which station is in your area. And again, we'll be here at the end and we can talk about what stations cover your area. You have a checklist here. The chief also mentioned a few things that happens in the event of a disaster. We talk about the Emergency Survival Guide, which is a very comprehensive book, and we're going to make sure everybody gets one. But more importantly, we want to make sure that all of you, if you can, please sign up and take this CERT class. CERT is very important and it helps you out. Because again, if you just understand that you will be on your own for, like the council mentioned, about a good 3 days to a week without resources or power, it's like going on a camping trip. You'll be camping in your backyard with your charcoal, having your food, and you may not have any running water, any electricity, things like that. One thing we also recommend you do is invest in a portable generator. Anybody have a portable generator at their home? Hold your hands up high, because I'm going to come to your house. It's Gerald, who else? You, who else? If you have a portable generator, you can plug in your essentials, like your refrigerator, maybe a plug for a television set to find out what's going on, what's happening in terms of the earthquake, any important information. So we do suggest you invest in a portable generator. Run the generator outside, not in the house. Run it outside, okay, where it's fresh air, where the exhaust can just blow into the air and not inside your home. Okay, you can run an extension cord inside your house if your house is safe, and you can still have maybe one light or two, maybe a refrigerator. So when you go to one of the stores, I'm not advertising for Home Depot or Lowe's, but if you go to one of those places that sell generators, ask them, what can this run? What can this handle? How many appliances, so you'll know. You can't stack up all this stuff to one generator and plug your whole house up. It doesn't really work, okay? But at least there's something you'll have temporarily to keep you going, okay? Are there any questions anybody has for us? Yes, sir. Good morning, Gerald.
My pleasure. When you mentioned portable generators, there's a couple of types of portable generators. One with gas. Is there also one with battery?
There are generators with batteries, but I recommend the gasoline power because they usually last a lot longer, usually up to 5 to 8 hours, and depending on how much gas and their spare gas supply to run that, because the battery goes down and there we are, nothing to plug it up to. Okay. Yes, sir.
Okay, when you talked about the fire extinguishers, mine is 3 years old. I have turned it up and like this, but is it time to be serviced now?
Yes.
Okay.
Or you can just purchase another one.
Yeah, okay.
You can do that.
It was 3 or 5 years something.
Yes.
And then my other question was, I know that you want the adults in the CERT. I have some children in my area, 14 to 16. Can they come?
Right now, at the bottom, it says they must be 18 years of age, but there is CERT for children. It's a whole separate class because we do what's called adult learning. We speak to an adult audience in terms of being able to catch up and keep up with what we're talking about, and that's the only hindrance on having children like 14 there. Yeah, but you can, once we train you all, you can modify what you've done and learned and give it to your children. Yeah. Yeah.
I heard him mention about having fire extinguishers and first aid kits in your homes, and many of you raised your hands. But how many of you have a first aid kit in the trunk of your car or somewhere in your vehicle? Because you may be traveling and you may have need, or you may need to assist someone, and you need, as the captain indicated, know how to use it. So keep that in mind as well. And in fact, keeping water in your car as well as a backup, water bottles is critical. And then also, I have no problem, Mr. Burton, if you want to pass that document out, or we need to get a sign-up sheet for the sign-up for the CERT program, because right now, as you heard, they are prepared to prepare you for a disaster, but you don't prepare yourself. We've had the program available for you that was last Saturday, this Saturday, and the following Saturday, and they canceled it simply because citywide, only 10 people responded. And you've heard what he said, we need a minimum of 20. So, and you gotta attend all 3 sessions because each session covers a specific subject matter, okay? Yes. All right, so we're gonna bring in the sign-in sheets, and that if you'll just take time, and also at every table is blank sheets of paper. That is your paper to use to take notes. I provided you pens or pencils in your blue bag so you can take those out and make copious notes, because you are now going to become a library, a resource. And I expect for you to take that back to your family, friends, block clubs, neighbors, etc., to share. Okay, are we there? Are we there? And everyone wrote down the dispatch center number from the fire department. Again, it's 323-881-2455. Good. But now we're going to switch over slightly before the panel comes. We have one more presenter that has to leave, but it's a critical part of our presentation. So you want to get started now, so you set up. One of the challenges I've dealt with as now being a mature, go ahead. Oh, now being a mature adult, has to do with the fact of, are you financially prepared when it's time to retire? Many of you have thought about, well, I make this kind of money now as an active employee, so when I retire, it's just going to keep going, right? For those that are retired, do you know that's not true, right? So if you don't have any backup plan, such as a pension or some other kind of retirement plan, you're not really prepared. So I want to make sure that we have someone to do that. At this time now, please help me also recognize Mr. Shannon Lawrence of Synergy Capital and Insurance Associations. And I must advise, I got to do a plug here. The city of Inglewood is not endorsing this company, but is endorsing the concepts. So take advantage of this opportunity if it's for you. Lawrence, go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman. That was some great information we heard, right? Yes. So I am going to stay on the theme a little bit of disaster preparedness, because a lot of us don't really think about. We think about the catastrophe and the physical impact of a disaster in an emergency, but we also don't think about what happens in preparation for it, and what happens with our money, what happens with our finances, what happens when we need to actually do the things that we have to do to continue to support ourselves after a catastrophe or a disaster. Let me just kind of put it in context, right? When we think about disaster, what's the first thing we think about? Or a catastrophe, earthquake, right? Fire, right? Tsunami if you live in Japan. But what we don't think about, what's another type of disaster that really impacts our homes? Loss of a job unexpectedly, right? Sometimes you may get physically hurt in that disaster and you can't go back to work. Something may happen to where your job may shut down. I mean, there are a lot of different things in which we have to be financially prepared. That can be very, very devastating to our homes. And so that's what I want to talk to you a little bit about that today, as well as in the vein of preparing for retirement. As we see, your finances, when a disaster happens, because it's not if an emergency happens, it's when. And I'm sure a lot of us have experienced something that's kind of set us back, that caught us off guard. Next slide, please. No. Arrow down, over, there. There we go. So what's the first thing we need to prepare for an emergency? An emergency fund. Now, I'm not going to ask who has an emergency fund in here, But we all know that we should have one, correct? And let me just be very clear, your emergency fund should not be your retirement fund. Your emergency fund should not be your kid's college fund. That's not an emergency fund. An emergency fund is just that. A lot of people will say, well, I don't make enough to have an emergency fund. Well, believe it or not, with proper planning, you can have your daily living expenses. You can plan for retirement. You can plan for your kids' college. You can plan for that vacation. And you can have an emergency fund and plan for that with the proper plan. So we all know why we need an emergency fund, right? If an emergency happens. Prime example, what happens if you're working in that building? Captain Burton just rescued you from that building, but that was your place of work. It's not up and running anymore. You may have to find another job. What are you going to do? That's why you need an emergency fund, because you need to be able to take care of yourself in the meantime. How much should I have an emergency fund? How long does it take to find a job today? Anybody think? It may take up to 18 months. That's absolutely correct. But we tend to say at minimum you should have about 3 to 6 months of your living expenses in your emergency fund. About 3 to 6 months. That's pretty safe. That gives you enough to be able to sustain yourself. But that also gives you enough to have some cushion. The next thing is, where should I keep my emergency fund? Now, you have two types of accounts that we often think about to be able to keep an emergency fund. That's a liquid account, and that's an investment account. A liquid account is someplace like your bank, right? Liquid account could be underneath your mattress. You don't really want to endorse that because, if there's a fire, guess what happened? You literally just, burned your money. But we do want to. But you want to think about, where are you keeping your emergency fund? Is your emergency fund in a place where you can have access to it quickly and easily? Now, the good thing about it is that in today's day and age and technology, if you have to go to the bank to get your money, you don't necessarily need to go to the bank, because a lot of it is digital, it's technological. As long as you have your debit card, you can access it from pretty much any ATM machine, and that's an advantage living today. But you also want to just keep in mind as to where you're keeping it. If you're trying to have your emergency fund in an investment account, there are many implications that come with saving money in an investment account, meaning early withdrawal, penalties, taxes that you'll have to pay. So keep that in mind as you're thinking about, where am I keeping my emergency fund? And if you have money in there now, then we should probably talk. Next slide, please. One of the things I want everyone to understand is that it's never too late to start planning for that. It's never too early to start planning for it either, frankly. But one of the things that we have to be very clear about is, you have to know what your goal is. You have to be very clear as to how much do you need to live with your basic living expenses from month to month. Not what I like to do, but what do I have to do? How much money do I have to have in order to just be able to survive, to keep my bills paid, to make sure nothing gets repossessed, to make sure that I can pay for my medications, to make sure I can pay for those things that I have to pay for. We need to be, and you need to be very clear about that, because I think what we find is that when we really look at our finances, a lot of things that we think we need are things that what we really want, things that we really like to do, not necessarily things that we have to do. And so we want to be very clear about that when you're determining what your goal is. You also need to put a plan together to meet your goals strategically. Now, if you need to save up, if your basic living expenses are $2,000 a month and you need to save up $6,000 to put in your emergency fund, I'm not suggesting that you stop spending in order to put $6,000 into account. But we do need to plan strategically. Maybe that means that we take 3 or 4 months in order to be able to build it, or we take 6 months to build it. But you need to be very clear about what your goal is and be very intentional about reaching that goal, because you want that peace of mind and knowing that you're at least working towards it and that you have it. The last thing one of the things I want to talk to you about too is it's called the enemies of money. Because when you're saving, we don't take these things into consideration, but these are what we call things that impact your money. The first one is inflation. How many of you know what inflation is, what the inflation has been for the last 20 years? It's been at about 3.25%. which means that if you have your emergency fund in an account, and it's been in there, say your emergency fund is $100, and inflation's at 3.25%, and you're depending on that $100, next year, how much is that money really worth? $97. The value of it is $97. So we want to be very intentional about understanding what inflation is and how is that impacting your emergency fund? How is that impacting where you're saving? And that might mean that you may need to make adjustments as the years go on in order to account for inflation. The other thing we want to talk about is taxation, right? There are three categories when it comes down to taxation and taxation of your money. Now, there are three categories. We call it tax now, tax later, and tax never columns, right? Your tax now column may be where you want to keep your emergency fund, because tax now are places like banks, places where you actually put your money in your account after you've paid taxes on it. Now here's a challenge. If you put your money in a bank in order to save your money, you're putting in pre-tax, correct? I mean, after you pay taxes on it, correct? But what if you put it into an account that actually earns interest? If you earn a good amount of interest, what's the bank going to do at the end of the year come tax time? They're going to send you a little bill to take to your tax man, because guess what? Now you got to pay taxes on that. And so did you really save what you needed to save? Just keep that in mind as to which kind of account you're putting that in. Now, if you say, well, in order to mitigate that, I'm going to put my money in my 401k. That's what we call tax later, because guess what? You put it in pre-tax, and you get the tax burden, you get the tax advantage early on. But guess what happens when you get ready to go pull it out? If you pull it out at 59.5, guess what? You pay taxes on what you pull out, correct? But if you pull it out before 59.5, like at an emergency, guess what? Not only do you have to pay taxes on what you earn, but now you got to pay federal and state taxes as well. So are you really getting back what you need in order to survive? Keep that in mind when we think about where we're saving. The last thing is that tax advantage column, and that's more of an investment account. That's a place where you put it in, where you put your money in pre-tax, but you also can earn. I mean, you put it in post-tax, but you also whatever you earn in interest, you don't have to pay taxes on when you get ready to retire. Frankly, that may not be the best place to put your emergency fund. It may be, depending on how old you are. But just keep that in mind as to where you're saving for an emergency or planning for retirement. The last thing we want to talk about is risk, right? And this is a very, very simple concept. It deals with when you're trying to save money, like in a 401k. What happens in a 401k? Where do you put it? In the market, right? Up and down, up and down, up and down. No one can predict it. So if you're saving your money in if you're saving your emergency fund in a 401k, thinking, well, I'm just going to, hopefully, you can only hope that the emergency happens when the market is at its height. And you're over 59.5, so you don't get taxed. And all of these other variables that happen, right? Or you could put in a fixed account, but fixed accounts normally are earning, about 2% interest? But inflation's at 3.5% interest, 3.25%. So are you really earning what you need to earn in order to make sure that the value of that money stays the same? There's also a new concept called an index concept, which we could talk about later. And essentially what that does is more of a retirement tool, and it allows you to be able to earn, grow your money with all the gains in the market and never suffer any of the losses. Next slide, please. And finally, as the chief mentioned, the chief of police mentioned, it's a couple of things. That you need to make sure all your financial documents are intact when you have an emergency. It's not just your prescriptions, but how many of you keep if your house is paid for, how many of you keep your deed to your house? Do you know where it is? Is it in a place where it's going to get damaged? Because I don't know if you saw what happened in Katrina, but a lot of people couldn't prove that they own the houses that they own because the deeds got washed away, and you can't go and say, hey, I really lived here. It just doesn't work. You got to make sure your paperwork is in order. So your deeds to your house, your bank account, and all of those numbers and some statements, all of your investment accounts, making sure any place where you have your money, you need to make sure it's in a safe place that will not get damaged in an emergency. The refrigerator is a good place, like the chief mentioned, in case of a fire. But what happens but that's not also the only place. You may want to consider getting a home safe to keep those documents in. And you may want to consider putting it into a bank safety deposit box, keeping those documents in there so that those important documents that actually has your financial health is in a place where you can access it and is going to be safe. So one of the things that's important is that we have to know, what is your plan? You know, planning for an emergency or planning for retirement is critical. And, you know, so the first thing we have to do is you need to really create a financial plan if you don't have one. And if you've done one 10 years ago, it may be different today. If you did one 5 years ago, it may be different today. Your goals may be different. The things that you need to accomplish may be different. Life happens. And so you have to just be mindful and keep that in mind, that as we get older, as situations in our life change, those things need to change as well, because things do not stay the same. The value of the dollar doesn't stay the same. Our goals don't stay the same. And so we need to just keep that in mind. And so I encourage you to seek help if you don't know how to do it yourself, or even if you do, just get it checked out by a counselor or an advisor. There are a lot of companies that will do those things for you for absolutely free. But something I do want to mention is that, you know, once you have your plan together, when you have all your documents, tell someone. One of the things, how many of you have experienced someone who's passed away, and when they passed, no one knew anything? They didn't know where they had money. They didn't know if they owned their house. They didn't know anything about that person. They didn't know if they had burial insurance. They didn't know. It's because, you know, we have to stop having the attitude and mentality, I don't want nobody in my business. No, somebody needs to be all up in your business. No, seriously, somebody needs to be all up in it. And the reason why is because, God forbid, a disaster happened and now you're invalid. And you can't talk and you can't tell somebody. Someone needs to know. Tell your kids, tell your grandkids, have those conversations. They're tough conversations to have. It really is. It's not an easy conversation. It's not easy talking about money. It is not. But you have to have it. You have to have that conversation. And in case, and especially keep geography in mind. You know, don't tell all your business to somebody who might be impacted by the same disaster that you're in, because they might not be able to talk either. So if you got family in Louisiana or Mississippi or in Texas, you know, somebody, especially family member that you trust, tell them, hey, you know, cousin. You remember where I am, right? Hey, cousin, you know, I know I haven't seen you in a while. I know we talk all the time, but let me just tell you, if something were to happen to me, I have these bank accounts. This is my banker. I have these documents. There's a safe in my house in the third room underneath the third step. Something, so that if something happens to you, they can say, hold on, I can take over. I know where everything is, okay? So don't be afraid to do that. We have to have that conversation. Tell somebody what's going on. And most importantly, be honest. You have to be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself. I know we have the term that we often go by, fake it till you make it. This ain't the time to fake it. This is not the time. Be honest with yourself about where you are financially and where you need to go and what you need to do. And you will be able to live the life that you want to live in retirement and during the case of an emergency. And lastly, if for more information, you can contact me. My name is Shannon Lawrence once again. It's my phone number up here. I'll repeat if you can't see it. It's area code 424-354-1911. And you can always email me at slawrence.sca@gmail.com. I have some flyers. Some surveys. If you do want help and you do need assistance or you need someone, feel free to fill this out, and I can help you with your emergency planning, retirement planning, anything that you may need. It's all free of charge. It's my pleasure to do it. And the reason why I do it, frankly, is because this is one of the most needed, really one of the most needed services in our community in particular, because we are the most adversely impacted by not having a proper financial health. And so I want to make sure that you know that my services are available. They're free. I'll leave a survey out in the foyer, or I'll hand it to you on my way out. And thank you so much for allowing me to speak, Councilman, and have a good day. If I'll take any questions if you have time.
All right, we'll take a couple of questions before we start our panel. Any questions or comments regarding finance? Are you prepared? Or is there any issues you want to raise? Is there a question in the background or just a comment? Question.
You're talking about services, and you're talking about assisting people, and I'm at that point where I'm approaching 70 and a half. Is there any assistance for how do you protect your money?
Absolutely.
Because at 70 and a half, they're going to come after it.
Absolutely, and we could talk about that offline. But one of the things that we can offer, if any of you are interested, is not only a protection plan, an investment analysis and strategy for you, retirement strategy, gap analysis for those of you about to enter retirement and you want to know what that gap is going to be between what you have now and what is going to be a retirement. We can provide all of that for you free of charge.
All right, let's give him a hand, please. Thank you. Are you getting anything out of this meeting? Was it worth coming? But that's what it's all about. It doesn't do me any good to have a meeting if I don't have enough information that inspires you to take this information and then share it with someone else.
In my presentation, one thing I did mention to you, coming up on July 24th, 25, and 26, we're going to have a static display of LA County fire resources here at Hollywood Park in the parking lot area, meaning every piece of equipment that we have at our disposal in the fire department will be here so you can see what we have. From 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., those 3 days in a row, July 24, 25, and 26, we want you to come out and see our helicopters, our hazmat team, urban search and rescue team, all of our equipment that we use. It's going to be a whole plethora of rigs and trucks out here, and we want you to come see what it is that you have at your disposal as the LA County Fire Department. So again, I'll be here to the very end if there's any more questions and to give you those books we talked about. So once again, thank you.
Okay, and for those that were in the background, you may have saw someone pop in and pop out. That was my wife, Juanita Franklin, and our first grandchild, Mariah. All right. All right. So at this time, I'm going to step to the side because we're here to talk about life-threatening issues that will impact your life, your neighbors' lives, and those that love you most. So we've asked for the utility companies to be here. So we have representatives from the Southern California Edison, Golden State Water, and Southern California Gas.
Good morning. My name is Mike Harriel. I am the Public Affairs Manager for the Southern California Gas Company. I've been with the gas company for 24 years. I worked in field operations, technical services, and now in the public affairs arena. I want to thank Councilman Franklin for having a forum like this. I represent several other cities, and those cities never have anything like this. So you are very, very fortunate to have a council member who is concerned not only with the safety of the city, but your safety as well. And some good information out here, and I know these gentlemen here at the table will provide even more good information.
My name is Marvin Jackman, Southern California Edison Public Affairs Manager for the City of Inglewood. I again want to thank Councilman Franklin. This is actually my second time coming here. I came here a couple years ago, so it's good to be back and presenting an emergency response to the City of Inglewood. So I appreciate it, and thank you.
Thanks, Marvin. Good morning, everyone. My name is Fred Ajarian, and I'm the district manager for Golden State Water Company. I, too, also would like to thank Councilman Franklin for inviting us here to talk about emergency preparedness and certainly my favorite subject, which is water. Hopefully it won't be too dry. So, sorry, good jokes are hard to come by in this industry. With that,
Now, I want you to understand, these gentlemen you see here are not just gentlemen coming to do a presentation. These are our representatives for the City of Inglewood. So anytime I have issues for those that talk about light outs on utility poles, Marvin Jackman is who I reach out to. If I have issues regarding Golden State Water where we have breakage or seepage, I I reach out to Mr. Algerian. So, and then also with Southern California Gas, if there's any kind of response, particularly where they have that facility that's at 104th and Crenshaw, I reach out to Mike. So these individuals are my contacts. When you call me up and say I have these issues, these are my go-to guys, because these are the experts in the field that they have been very effective. So in order to get this started, I asked for Mr. Algerian to go first because he already has his PowerPoint presentation up, and the floor is now yours.
Very good. Councilman, thank you very much. Again, good morning, everyone. Glad to be here. For the next 10 minutes or so, we'll talk a little bit about water, a little overview of Golden State Water Company, our water system, and then talk about some of the issues related that affect our delivery of water service, and then segue right into emergency preparedness. So with that, John Dew, I'd like to introduce. He's our communications manager, public affairs for Golden State Water Company. With that, all right, so a little bit about who we are. Golden State's a public utility regulated by the California Public Utilities Commission. We deliver water. That's principally our business. We operate in 38 water systems in 75 communities in 10 counties in the state of California. Next slide, please. We provide water to over 1 million people, or 1 out of every 36 Californians. In addition, Golden State also provides electric service to 23,000 customers in the Big Bear area. Here's a map, kind of illustrates some of the same points about Golden State. 75 cities, 10 counties, 38 water systems, 254,000 water service connections. And all told, we're responsible for 2,700 miles of water lines. Our commitment is to provide quality water service that meets drinking water standards, is pressurized, and delivered to your home 24/7, 365. We also are involved, and you'll see us out and about working on replacing infrastructure. In fact, one of the projects I'll be talking to you about is a project that we just completed literally last week. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And also modernizing our service with new technologies, and also providing information to help our customers manage their bills and conserve water. Next slide, please. Just a little bit about where your water supply comes from. Map of Southern California here. You've got 3 sources of supply. We'll go with the oldest. That's the LA Aqueduct here. That was constructed in 1913 by William Mulholland. That principally serves water to the city of Los Angeles. All that water coming from the Owens Valley, if you will. The next oldest aqueduct is the Colorado River Aqueduct. That brings water from the Colorado River to Southern California. This was finished construction in 1941. Brings in about 1.5 billion gallons of water a day. That's a lot of water. The most current project that was constructed of these 3 aqueducts is the State Water Project, also known as the Edmund G. Brown Senior Aqueduct. This was finished construction in 1969. This brings in about 1.5 million acre feet of water per year from Northern California. You see these 2 reservoirs here, Shasta, Oroville. They feed into the Delta. That water is pumped and then conveyed down this 444-mile aqueduct and into the terminal storage reservoir at Lake Matthews out in the Riverside County, and then it's distributed to all of Southern California. Next slide, please. This is the Southwest Water System. We serve 54,000 water service connections. That translates into 300,000 customers. And that takes into account 8 cities, Inglewood, along with 7 other cities in the South Bay area. We have about 490 miles of pipeline throughout this area, 14 groundwater wells. The majority of our water supply is groundwater. And also take imported water. That's that water from the Colorado River Aqueduct or Northern California that you saw earlier. Next slide, please. This is our service area here for Inglewood. And I just lost my pointer. Well, that's okay. We have about 4,000 connections. It's a mixture of imported and groundwater supplies. And we have served this area since 1929. The company was founded in 1929, and then the area at that time was unincorporated LA County, was annexed by the city in between 1930 and 1940, but we've continued to provide water service to this part of Inglewood since that time. Next slide, please. Just segueing now to specific projects. This is the project I mentioned that we just finished. It's the Imperial Highway and Prairie Avenue Pipeline Project. The location is at the intersection, top end of Prairie and 111th, down to Imperial at the junction of Imperial and Doty Avenue. Next slide, please. Some stats about the project. We replaced over 3,000 feet of cast iron pipe, over 60 years old, at a cost of a little over $1.4 million. And literally, we just finished this project last week. We completed the paving. Those of you that have driven through probably seen a lot of construction equipment. It's just completed. So this is a major project to serve the city of Inglewood. The source of this project was our water system master plan. Every water system has a master plan. And this document uses field data and hydraulic modeling. That means we look at the water system to determine what improvements need to be made, where, and at what time. Always try to stay ahead of those improvements, if you will. Next slide. We had to go through a lengthy process to get this project approved, so we started 5 years back. And that started with a submittal of this proposed project to the California Public Utilities Commission. We went through an extensive process that took 18 to 24 months. They've approved it, and we started construction here about a year ago. And then our commitment, as I mentioned earlier, replacing aging infrastructure. It's an important component to maintaining high service to our customers, and especially in terms of emergency preparedness. A lot of the water system that we are managing here in the South Bay is old. Some of it's reached the end of its useful life. So our challenge is to keep that system repaired, replace the pipes that are old when they need to be replaced, and to ensure that that water service comes no matter what, 24/7. Next slide. A few projects here, I won't go through them all, but these are projects that are proposed for construction just to serve the Inglewood area. Project here on Hawthorne Boulevard. This is a big one. It's going to be about 3,000 feet long. Another project here, almost a mile. This is scheduled for construction in 2014 from Yukon down to, from Imperial down to 108th Street. 4 more projects here. This one's scheduled this year on 102nd Street, Prairie to Yukon. Another project scheduled for 2013 from 117th by Yukon to Frontage Avenue. This is a big project down Century Boulevard from La Cienega to Yukon. That's nearly 2 miles long. That's going to start in 2014. Big ticket project, almost $5 million. And then this last project, which we're just finishing up here along Prairie Avenue from Imperial to 110th, this will be finished up just very shortly. So just to give you a range of the projects that we have going, because unlike fine wine, water systems are not getting better with age. All right? Next slide, please. Reliable water quality, this is our #1 job. It has to meet drinking water standards, pressurized properly, and it's delivered to your home 24/7. Now, we talked about the Imperial Pipeline Project. That's one way to ensure good quality water. We also are engaged in regular flushing of the Southwest District water system, and that's performed on a continuous basis. Next slide, please. Flushing, and you'll see our crews out there. In fact, I have my staff here. Darren Bartleson, who's our superintendent of our flushing operations, and then Ed Galvin, who's with our water quality department. And in fact, for those of you customers that may have questions about your water quality, please feel free to come talk to us afterwards about that so that we don't take time away from the panel members. But flushing is important because it helps remove silt and sediments that deposit naturally over time in the pipelines, ensures optimal cleaning to we get that cleaning done by controlling the flow and the velocity of the water. We basically force the water through the water lines to scour that and flush out the silt and any debris in there. And it also helps to improve water system circulation, something that's very important for Captain Burton and his staff. When there's a fire, they have to be able to know that the water's there 24/7 when they hook up to a hydrant and put out that fire. Our district has worked closely with Councilman Franklin's office in responding to water quality concerns of Inglewood customers, and this is a 24/7 job. So, next slide, please. Focusing now on emergency preparedness. As has been mentioned already by both Captain Frontera and, Chief Frontera and Captain Burton, pardon me, you want to store a sufficient amount of bottled water for a minimum of 3 days. The old rule of thumb used to be for 72 hours. I think now it's been extended. So preferably if you can do 2 weeks, that's much better if you have the storage capability. Keep enough water on hand for your family members and pets. Can't forget about your pets. Figure about a couple gallons per person per day and a couple quarts per day per pet. Next slide, please. Now, if you haven't prepared and you're wondering, uh-oh, the big one just hit. I'm isolated. It's going to be a while before services are restored. What do you do? Here's some other sources of water that are available in your home. You can have water in your, you can use water from your ice cubes, your hot water tank, your toilet tank, and for those of you that have water beds, your water beds. Now, before you use that water, though, you want to purify that water. You can purify it using water purification tablets or some household bleach, 4 drops per quart, just regular old household bleach, and let it stand for 30 minutes. You don't want to drink it right away, otherwise you're going to have your nasal passages completely open very quickly. Or if you're taking tap water, boil it. Boil it vigorously for 3 to 5 minutes. Next slide, please. That's it.
For our employees as well as the public, do not touch down power lines. Write that down. Do not touch down power lines. And because it's public information, you know, last year we had a few fatalities with folks touching down power lines out in the San Bernardino Valley. We had a unfortunate resident that got, there was a line down. They ran over to the line. They were fatally killed. And then had a family member go touch them. And then same thing happened to that person. And so it's very, very important. At Edison, we value safety. It's our first value in the company. Do not touch down power lines. What should you do? The second is call, I'm going to give you my personal number, 1-800-611-1911. That's the number you call. 1-800-611-1911. That is the number you call for anything that you have to deal with Edison. And of course, we want you, as we heard earlier, call 911. Either way, they're gonna call. They're gonna get a hold of Edison. Do not touch down lines. And one of the things that I'm trying to also educate today is, you know, in most of our yards we have poles, utility poles, and there are multiple things on those poles. There's your cable on those poles. There's some cell folks on those poles, and at the top of the poles is the power lines. And most folks don't know and don't need to know to distinguish between the different types of power that are different types of lines that are on your poles. Don't touch any of them. Call 911 or call the 800 number, and we'll have someone come out there. We want you to call 911 first. The Edison line, the 800 number I gave you is the emergency line for Edison. You can call that number for your bills, your lights out, all those kind of things. That is the number. So 800-611-1911. You know, my role with the city is Mr. Franklin, as he mentioned, he has my personal cell and my work cell. So he calls me, and my role is really to work with local government and the first responders. But I want to make sure that you guys have the number for that's the second thing. So we got the first thing. What's the first one? Don't touch down power lines. And the second one is that number is great, great. And the third thing, as we've heard today, is to make sure in an emergency that you have at least 2 weeks of supplies for yourself and your family and your pets. And we work right now, we're saying 10 to 14 days. Mr. Franklin had a slide up during most of this morning about the windstorms that hit the San Gabriel Valley. We had our Emergency Operations Center activated where I was there. It was something I had never seen before in my life. It looked like a bomb had went off in that area. There were so many trees down and so many wires down. And that was one of the lessons that we have learned at Edison during that time, is that we had a tough time bringing power back up because we had to cut so many trees away. And we had to keep folks from the lines that were in the trees away. And it took almost 7, I think it was 7 days before we finally had all power up. So again, that 14-day supply, flashlights, I brought some flashlights for your folks outside for you to have. You know, think about 14 days of not having power during a windstorm, during an earthquake. Again, as I mentioned earlier, if you call us, I'm going to give you later our priorities and how what we rank our restoration times, and how we restorate and who we restore first. So I'll give that to you. So the third thing is the 10 to 14 days of power. We talked about generation, generators at Lowe's and Home Depot, water, food. 10 to 14 days. Those are the 3 things I really want you to come away with. And then I'm just going to walk through just a few things that I wanted to cover with you in terms of how we operate emergencies at Edison. In terms of our emergency response, the city and the first responders know how to reach us in terms of local public affairs. Of course, Edison, we serve 14 million people in Southern California. About 430 cities. Again, just like the other utilities, we are regulated by the CPUC, the California Public Utilities Commission. Because we are power, we're also regulated by the Cal ISO, that's the Independent System Operator, and as well as FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. So in terms of emergencies, one of the things that was huge at Edison recently was the windstorms. And I know you heard about those windstorms. We are still working on lessons learned, and actually now working on implementing those lessons learned. One of those is actually involved with now being trained in the FEMA ICS, or Incident Command System. So we're all taking the training that actually is coming down from FEMA. Most folks at our company, in dealing with emergencies. So I talked about our electrical system restoration priorities. Here's our priorities when we have emergency. Number 1, as I mentioned before, protect public safety and ensure that the utilities and public agencies have electricity. So we are going to, number 1, safety is number 1, and our first priority is working with the public agencies, fire, police, so on and so forth. Mr. Franklin probably does not know, but we recently, just as last week, been working with all the cities that I'm responsible for. Inglewood is one, where we now have a priority list from the city of Inglewood of what city facilities need to be brought back in an emergency. And I received that from his EOC folks, Michael Falco, last week. So this is one of the things that we learned from the windstorms. working with the cities and have an idea what are the most important facilities in the city that needs to come up first in an event of emergency. So we have that list from the city of Inglewood, and we worked with Mr. Falco. Our number 2 priority, repairing any SCE facilities that have sustained damage. And of course, the way power works, from the generation all the way down to the distribution, if we don't have the generation, we can't get down to your house. So we have to work down in a ranking order. So if our facilities are down, then obviously it's going to hamper the restoration to get finally to you. We got to repair our transmission lines, our 66 kV all the way to our 500 kV lines. Ensure that our substations and circuits are energized. Repair our distribution lines. Now this is kind of getting more to the house, to your house and my house. Our lower kV lines, repair the tap lines to smaller customers, and then finally repair individual customer problems. And that priority is done because if we can't repair your house, if our lines at the 500 level are down. Just a couple more minutes. In terms of the windstorm, one of the other lessons learned is we know now that we need to improve our communication and our estimate restoration times, what we call ERTs, in a major storm. We learned, I think the storm hit on a late Thursday night. I got called to the command center on a Friday. I left there, I think Saturday morning. My shift was over. And I heard that, this is a true story, I heard that we were going to give an estimate that we were going to have everybody's power restored in about 48 hours. And I walked away, and I called my boss, and he told me that information. He says, I hear a press release is going to come out, it's going to say 48 hours. I said, boss, I said, I just left this place, and I don't think that's going to happen. And it didn't happen. And we sort of paid the price. We were in front of the commission and the county supervisors testifying about that issue in terms of communication. So we learned that, given those estimate restoration times is not a good thing when we don't know. We got overwhelmed with phone calls. So in future catastrophic storm events, Edison will not offer ERTs until much more of a damage assessment has been completed. The public will be advised to assume the affected areas will be without power for unspecified periods of time, days or longer, depending on the event. Thirdly, SCE's online outage maps, which typically note restoration times, as well as our phone centers, derive that information from our outage management systems. They became overwhelmed. And then SCE may offer only general area ERTs when it does begin producing estimates. So we learned, what's that word? I can't remember that phrase, sort of overpromise and underdeliver. I might have that backwards, but we learned that we did the wrong one. And so we're not going to do that again in the future. I talked about our restoration priorities. And I think the last thing I really wanted to cover before I turn it over to Mike is a couple other lessons learned from the storm. Here we go. So new in 2012, local public affairs, we instituted an 800 number, and we gave those to the cities that we now, we will activate that number in event of emergency. That information has been shared with the city of Inglewood, Mike Falco, and he's going to give that number to the mayor and the city council. And that's who this for elected officials and senior staff at the city, so they know what's going on. So we have implemented that. That is in effect. And we also, information we worked with the city of Inglewood recently is using the use of their reverse 911 system, so that we can get communication out to the public through the city systems, those who have it, with cities who have it, and get messages out to the public that way. Also, you guys heard about CERT, so we're also going to be implementing the use of CERT volunteers in the cities, so that's coming. And so those are kind of the new things. I mentioned working now with the incident command system from FEMA, so we started that. I've been trained I've been trained on the 100, 200. I still need to do the 700. And these are all online courses. And we're also working with the county as well. I'm not the rep for the county, but working with the city of LA and the county of LA. The reps have shared that same information and gathered the same information from the county. So those are the things that kind of we're doing at Edison. We work obviously with the police and fire and the cities. Your first point of contact is that 800 number that I gave you. Thank you for your time, and I'm going to take questions at the end. I'm going to turn it over to Mike. Thank you.
Thank you, Marvin. Like Edison, the gas company's #1 priority is safety. Your safety, our employees' safety. We want to make sure that you do nothing to harm yourself. And so I'm going to try to provide you with a little bit of information to kind of familiarize you with natural gas and what to prepare for in the event of an emergency, and in particular, an earthquake. And it's not a matter of if it will occur, but it's a matter of when. And so now is the time to prepare for it. There are some things that we learned from the Northridge earthquake, which I happened to be a field employee during that time. And there were some things that came out of there that has helped us to determine the type of information that residents need to know about natural gas, and cities and the first responders, the police and fire. So we also partner with those groups to make sure they know what to do in the event of release of natural gas. And so just a little background on natural gas. Natural gas is a fossil fuel. It's colorless and odorless. And when you came in, hopefully you picked up one of these scratch and sniff cards. Don't scratch it now if you haven't already, because it smells bad. And it smells bad for a reason, because we want you to know when natural gas is released. So everybody in here is an adult, and you probably know what natural gas smells like. But you may have children, you may have grandchildren who don't know. So make sure you take the time to familiarize them with that nasty rotten egg smell. That's a smell that we put in the gas. It's not in there naturally. And again, we put it in so that it can be readily detected. Also, the thing I'd like you to understand about natural gas is that it is lighter than air, so it will float. That's a good thing. It's good if there's a release of gas out in the open, and so it will go ahead and just disseminate into the air. It's bad if that occurs underneath structures or buildings, and then the gas will rise, and then it will tend to pocket. And then when it pockets, it's just sitting there, and just sitting there. And as long as there is not a source of ignition, nothing will occur. Gas will ignite between 4 and 14%. And that's something that none of you are going to walk around with a gas meter and say, okay, well, it's not between 4 and 14%, so I have nothing to worry about. But I just want you to be aware that because we do a lot of work on our gas pipelines, and you may see employees who pull out torches and actually weld on gas pipelines. And I remember when I first saw that, my second day with the company, I started walking down the other side of the street when I saw this guy pull out a torch and actually start to weld on a gas line. But it's when you understand the properties of gas and its ignition point, you're comfortable with it. So again, I just want you to be aware of the smell and make sure that your family members are aware in the case that there is a release of natural gas. Secondly, I want to make sure that you know where your gas meter is. So please take the time, if you haven't already, to familiarize yourself with your gas meter location. Make sure your family members know, the children, grandchildren, etc. Just so you know, and just in case you have to access it. You'd be surprised how many People think that the electric meter is the gas meter, or that the water valve coming out of the ground is connected with the gas. So make sure you're aware of where the gas meter is. If you don't know where your gas meter is, feel free to give us a call. We'll help you. Normally it's on the side of your house. It could be in a curb vault in front of your house. It could be hidden in a cabinet somewhere along the side of your house. If you live in an apartment, your meter could be on what we call a header pipe with all the other residents in that apartment, and it's just a big long line or a couple of tiers of gas meters. But just make sure you're aware of where your gas meter is. Coming out of the line or out of the ground, the very first valve that you see is your shut-off valve. And that's what we use to disconnect the flow of gas into your house and through your meter. So there's a couple things about that valve. One is that valve should not be covered. Throughout the years, we do improvements on our home, concrete improvements. We may have a tendency to cover that valve. If that, you go in and look and see if your valve is covered, give us a call. We'll come out there and we will chip away at the concrete or what have you to make sure that it is exposed. Also, it may be underground. It's in a flower bed or it's in a dirt area and you cover it up with dirt. It's a good idea to just kind of keep it exposed. Also, that pipe material can corrode with water and if it's underground. So if it's in an area that's susceptible to your sprinklers, or I noticed that a lot of the drains will drain down into an area where your gas meter is. If that's occurring, you might just want to be aware of that. It doesn't hurt to give us a call out. We can operate that valve just to make sure that it does operate, because in the event of emergency, you want to be able to shut it off. And you go to turn it and it breaks, then there's nothing we can do other than dig up that whole line there. Also, it's a good idea just to make sure that you have a wrench available. I know a lot of people like to use a crescent wrench or a metal type of wrench. We don't recommend the metal wrench. They make plastic wrenches that you can secure to your meter or to that particular pipe. The plastic, it doesn't deteriorate as quickly. Metal can cause a short in your line depending on where it's laying, so we don't want it touching the meter or touching any of your pipes. So I would invest in a plastic type shut-off valve. And to have that wrench is just a precaution. The chief and the captain both mentioned that in the event of a disaster, it's going to be a while before they get to you. Same with the gas company. We estimate that if your gas service is interrupted, it's probably going to be about 2 weeks before we can get out to take care of you. So, and one thing that we saw during the Northridge earthquake is just because it was an earthquake, people went out and shut off their gas. I don't want you to do that. There are things that you can do to determine whether or not you do have a gas problem. And it's really easy. One is to smell, see if you can detect that nasty rotten egg smell on that card. Listen, because you'll be able to hear the hissing of the gas on some instances. And also just kind of look around, because if gas is being released through a broken pipe, you may see dust, you may see dirt coming out of the ground. During the Northridge earthquake, gas mains that were broken in the street, we could see the little discoloration and just the fumes actually coming up. And so look for those things. If you don't sense any of those things, you're probably okay, and I wouldn't just readily go and shut your gas off. But of course, if you're concerned and you're not sure, feel free to go ahead and turn it off, and then we'll get to you as quickly as we can. But again, you may not need to. And one of the reasons why, and I brought these here to show you, we have miles and miles of pipeline running through the city of Inglewood. And this is a 2-inch gas main. And it's made of plastic, polyethylene plastic. And the cool thing about this is that we store it on coils. It wraps around. It's very pliable. So in the event of any sort of movement, this will move. Yeah, so the chance of it breaking is very slim. We also have steel lines that are in the ground, but as we improve the integrity of your gas system, we're replacing those with plastic whenever we can. This is a service line, meaning this is a line that comes from the main in the middle of the street to your house. 1/2 inch, again, this is very pliable. We store it in coils. It moves with the ground. And one thing that we found with the Northridge earthquake is most of the damage occurred at the house, where the house is slid off of the foundation and actually just knocked over the pipe coming out of the ground. So it wasn't necessarily the plastic lines that were leaking, but it was just the house that knocked over those what we call risers, and those were damaged. So again, it was mentioned that you should make sure that your house is bolted. That is very important, because that's why I saw houses that slid down hills right off of the foundation because they weren't bolted. Most of the houses in Inglewood, I think, were built after the 1950s, so I think the majority of them may be bolted down, but it doesn't hurt to check. Also, just to briefly mention the water heaters. It's always a good idea to strap those so that those are not falling as well. So after an earthquake or a major event like that, we will go out and we'll actually inspect the lines or do what we call a survey of the lines. We have a little machine. We'll walk the lines. We'll try to determine, well, not try, but we will determine whether or not there is leakage on the line. So that's something that we do after an emergency. Another thing that we have, how many of you have earthquake valves? Just curious. Okay. So that's kind of a controversial subject, earthquake valves. Sometimes they work, okay, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they trip, just by a heavy truck going by. So if you have one, that's great. We have something that we are starting to put into all of our gas lines, which are called excess flow valves. So we know that the gas from your service line should operate at a certain pressure. If that pressure is exceeded, then your gas will automatically stop. That excess flow valve will automatically shut off your gas. And so if there is a damage up by your home, by the riser pipe coming out of the ground, if you have an excess flow valve on your home, that gas will stop. So that is a safety precaution that we're now putting on service replacement lines. A lot of you may have it, some of you may not, but we're working to get those in whenever we can. Also, I just want to mention about damage prevention. I wanted to show you these so you can see they're nice bright yellow and their size, because we have folks who go out on the weekends and they want to plant a tree and they dig a hole and they look at this and say, gee, what's that? Well, I don't know. Well, let's cut it out. It's a root. And you put a shovel through it, then the captain has to send a crew out, because you have gas flowing. So there is the 811, which is the call before you dig. You call 811 48 hours before you're going to do any digging in your yard, and all the underground utilities will come out and they will mark where their lines are, so that you have an awareness of where they are. The number one damage or the number one cause of release of natural gas to our lines is from a third party. It's from somebody digging a hole or doing work and hitting our lines. Sometimes they know the lines are there, but they think, you see the guys in the big heavy equipment, just one more scoop, that's all I need, just one more scoop. And they drag that backhoe, and that's the scoop that does it. So just be aware of that. And It's a free service to you. It's a free call. Please utilize it. Also, I have a couple other pamphlets hopefully you picked up. It's the Be Safe. We do have transmission gas lines that run through the city. Transmission are your larger lines. These are lines that operate at hundreds of pounds of pressure. For over 100 years, we've operated our gas pipeline safely, and we'll continue to do so. So I don't want you to be alarmed because we have high pressure lines running through the city of Inglewood. I think the councilman member mentioned 104th and Crenshaw. That's a regulator station where the gas comes in at a few hundred pounds. At that station there, it's reduced down to what we call medium pressure, which is about 60 pounds, and then it's released all throughout the city. So it's running through these pipelines at medium pressure. It comes up through your house. Through this line, it's reduced at your house to what we call water column. So it's really less than a pound. And then when it goes into your appliances have a regulator that reduces it down even further. So the area there at 104th and Crenshaw, we operate it safely, we inspect it regularly, so please feel comfortable when you drive by and see it. I lived in Inglewood for 12 years, and I live right down the street from there, so I'm well aware of that facility. Also, I mentioned the 811, so the excavation safely pamphlet is here as well, so please make sure you get those items and obtain that information.
Okay, now you've heard the experts. A couple of housekeeping items. Marvin Jackman from Southern California Gas, flashlights are gone. So, I said gas, huh? Southern California Edison. The flashlights you provided us, by popular demand, they're gone. Also, I was going to put back on the screen, Aaron, if you put that back on there for me, please, because I want to stress the importance about having trees that you took for granted. And when these high winds hit, and I'm not talking about earthquake, high winds, Pasadena was devastated. It just happened in November of last year through December. And as you heard Marvin Jackman indicate with Southern California Edison, and all these companies here, they needed help. When you had Captain Burton and his team there, they had 26, just with the Los Angeles County Fire Department, they had 26 different stations to assist them on this massive devastation. And so there's a joint partnership that is needed in order to make this thing successful. And that when you think of the trees are down, think about a tree is up in the air, but what's in the ground? Your gas line, your water line, and sewer line. So when that tree falls, guess what happens to the roots? The roots pulls up those lines. And that's why when you heard Mike talk about, you know what, if you smell gas, be sure that you have the capability of turning off your gas. If you have water gurgling or bursting up in the air or out all in your yard, have the capability of knowing how to turn it off. And then more importantly, when emergencies happen, who's got a wrench next to their water meter or their gas line? So when you need emergency, you don't have time to try to find your toolbox and then try to find out which wrench is going to do that. You need to have it nearby, someplace where you know it's safe and quick access to, so that way if you have that issue, you're able to do that. Okay, at this time we're going to take questions and comments from the panel, and also be mindful that we are blessed here to also have Captain Burton still here with the Los Angeles County Fire Department. We also have Acting Chief Mark Fontarada that's here from the Inglewood Police Department. So they are available also to answer questions you may have involved in that as well. Who's first? So I'm going to give the panel the mic, and then I'm going to take the wireless one and walk around.
Hello. I have a neighbor that has a huge tree and refuses to cut it down. Is there any way that you can report them?
Well, I'm not going to report them, but if you call the 800 number I gave you and report that there's a tree and some power lines and you think that needs to be trimmed, we'll send someone out and take a look at it. Also, you keep in mind in your homes, you're responsible for if you have trees in your backyard, you're responsible for trimming the trees, your private trees on your private residence.
What?
Is that his number? Is your number 800-611-1911?
Yeah, I was a little bit of a joke. That's not my number. That's the Edison number. That's
Right.
our call center number.
Okay.
But yes, that's the number.
Thank you.
800-611-1911.
Okay, we have another question in the back.
And if that, just to add on to the lady's question here about the tree coming down, if that tree happens to rip out one of our water lines, we have a customer service center number as well, and it's 1-800-999-4033. So again, 1-800-999-4033, because our lines are just as susceptible, as Southern Cal Edison's or Southern Cal Gas Company to that kind of damage as well.
Okay, next question.
This is for the Water District. I have had a ongoing complaint about the water, about the smell and the quality of the water.
Yes.
And I got a phone call from your office Thursday that someone would be out because it continually smelled like rotten eggs.
Yes.
And no one ever came out. Now, the analogy with the rotten eggs there is almost like our water, a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
So nothing's being done. I mean, maybe something's being done, but it's a continuing problem.
To answer your question, ma'am.
So let me back up a second, because
Go
we're
ahead.
here talking about emergency responses. This is a regular occurrence that
Yes.
is occurring at this particular residence in which I gave you the information to.
Correct.
And so that'll be one that I ask for you to follow up through. If those remember that we had the issue regarding water in your lines and you're using a rubber line and the water is not flowing on a regular basis, like we experienced at our home, it created this egg smell. Even to this day, and since she brought it up again, even to this day, the fact that we have the issue in my front yard, my garden hose, which is rubber, when I turn my water on to water my flower bed in the front yard, I get that same kind of smell, but not in my home. So it's simply the rubber hose. Yeah, comment.
Smelling it so we can tell if it's leaking.
Well, all right. All right. So you'll follow up with them before you leave, and
Yes,
then we get further
yes, we
information.
will.
Okay. Moving along. Excuse me.
Oh, no, not me, I'm sorry.
You had mentioned about the emergency situations, about them, about purifying water. Is there
Yes.
any information available for the different methods some of the different methods that you spoke on about different ways to purify your water in your home?
Yes, we have in the blue tote bag that each of you received, there should be a sheet of paper that is titled "Take Steps to Prepare Your Family for an Emergency." That little summary sheet talks about your water and some of the treatment methods that I mentioned. This is also available online through FEMA. It's www.ready.gov, and I'll repeat that, www.ready.gov. That gives some of the details as far as how much household bleach you want to put into your water, how long to let it stand, or water purification tablets, or if you have none of those disinfection products available, then boil your water 3 to 5 minutes vigorously. That's always a surefire way to ensure that your water is going to be safe to drink if you don't have it in a bottle source, okay? My pleasure.
Yes, my question is, in terms, someone was speaking about flushing water, the water fire hydrants, and I wonder, why can't that water be recycled maybe to water our lawns or wash our cars or something, but that water goes down the storm drain to the Pacific Ocean, and it's probably hundreds of thousands of gallons, and I just wonder, why can't we recycle that water?
It's a good question. Actually, flushing water systems is actually a very common practice. I've worked for 7 different water agencies over the last 37 years, cities, special districts, and now Golden State Water Company, a private utility. flushing your water system is a typical practice to help improve that circulation, to reduce issues with taste and odors, such as this lady talked about. Recycling would be a good thing to do, but just as a practical matter, it would be very difficult to do. And when we do flush that water, and you're right, it goes into the storm drains, down into the creeks and so forth. We also have to work closely with the county and with the state regional water quality control board to get permits for that activity. But just as a practical matter, capturing that water, very difficult.
Any more questions? Try to keep it to emergency response, please.
I think that we all know that we're not supposed to touch a down power line, but the thing that's kind of scary to me is like being a conduit. Like, for example, if you're standing in water, you already mentioned that if you're standing in water, you could be a conduit, but suppose you had a situation like, for example, that the power line falls down to your aluminum water gutter and the water gutter is blocking your door and you need to get out. Can you use like rubber, something that's rubber? Like if you need to move something that's got electricity running through it? And what are some of the other freak kind of things that would happen if you're like a human that would make you a human conduit?
Well, I'm looking at the fire department for maybe to help me with that one.
Well, first thing, what you want to do is stay away from electricity and call 911 and be on the lookout for it's coming. You don't want to go near it or touch it. Anytime there is a line that is down, and let's say you're in a car and you hit a telephone pole and the live line comes down over that pole, don't try to get out of the car. Just stay there. And when help comes, we're going to direct you on what to do. What we do is we take a long stick. We have something called a electric mechanical axe, and we try to move the power lines off, and then we would have you jump free from the car. We don't want you to try to step out, because the minute your foot steps and hits something that's energized, you become the ground and you get electrocuted. And so what we try to do is have you jump free. We just had the situation about a week ago. We had to tell a woman to stay in your car and direct her how to jump out of the car so that she didn't become a ground and get electrocuted.
But suppose it's a big emergency and you're not coming.
Well,
I'm in my car, I'm in my house, and there's something blocking the doors and I can't get out.
Her question is, in the case of sometimes if a power line is down or she's caught in there and she's in a situation where she could be electrocuted, what to do? If you're still alive, don't go anywhere near where that line is and don't try to move outside. You could become a ground. So you have to wait till help comes to assist you. And when help does come, that's when you're okay. So it's a what if kind of question on what to do if that does occur. You may just be there for a long time until someone can assist you. And the way that happens is, again, we have to remove that power line from you or de-energize it somehow. And that's where they come in at to de-energize the line, or move the line away from you. And someone can take like a stick to move the line away, and then you want to kind of just jump free from that area. Whether you're inside of a house, jump out of the house, or inside of a car, jump from the car, but never step one step at a time.
The power line is lying on the ground and the ground is wet and you're standing in water. Do you become a conduit in that situation?
If you're standing in water and the power line goes down, you're going to get electrocuted. That's going to happen. It's like people trying to have a bathtub in a power line, or you try to have a toaster in there or a radio falls in there. That's what happens. So be careful.
And Aaron, would you go to the next slide? One of the things I just want to stress to you, excuse me, is the fact that that's exactly what it was going on in Pasadena. With those high winds, these power lines were down, and they could not cut the trees. The county fire couldn't have the trees cut until Southern California Edison was contacted to just turn off the power first. Then they were able to come to cut the trees. Why? Trees have sap, and it becomes a conduit. So they had to be extra careful. Any more questions? If not, one more question.
I think it was 2 nights ago, we had a blackout about 11 o'clock, and no one ever said what happened in Inglewood.
Okay, there's been a request, in fact, 2 things. One is, let's talk about emergency. Let's deal with one. In fact, we do have our chief here. Chief, we had two things, and I'll look at the captain, either one you can respond. We had two things. One is the Burlington Coat Factory, which no one brought up, where we had an emergency, where actually there was 13 people that was the hostages, and that 3 suspects was apprehended. But it also caused detours. And there was a number of agencies that responded, and thanks to the Inglewood Police Department having good liaison with the other agencies, it became a very successful nonviolent incident. And then the other thing was, Chief, there was recently a power outage. In fact, that's Southern California Edison. Can you respond to that? Do you know anything about it? Can you respond? Okay. Not trying to put anyone on the spot, but we did have a power outage in the northern part of the city around 2200. It was 20. That's at about 11 o'clock, and it was out at least past midnight before the power came on. You know anything about that?
I do not know. I saw an email. I've been on vacation, my first day back. So I was gone last week, and someone else was covering for me. But I did see an email about an outage in the city of Inglewood. I don't know the details about that particular outage.
I don't know the exact details, but I can tell you what does typically happen. If there is a car accident where a car hits a telephone pole, and that happens quite frequently, and the power lines go down, or a light standard that has lines across the top, it does impact electricity in certain areas. And so as soon as we get dispatched for that traffic accident and we get on scene and see those lines down, we immediately call for the assistance of Edison. And then we handle that incident right there, and Edison immediately starts to restore the power. So if your power lines are out, I believe Mark talked about there's some information you have on where they can call to get that number, that 1-800-611-911 number. They can call that number to find out, say my power is out, any idea when it'll be restored or how that works or what's going on. So you want to call that. But that's typical in a lot of areas. Power line can be down from an accident or a tree blowing, and it impacts a lot of areas. And so we try our best to make sure Edison responds with us and we work together on getting the power restored.
Okay, we're ready to wrap it up. Let's give our panelists a hand, please. All right. Put the whole thing. So what I want to share with you, I want to thank everyone for coming. We're going to close off the meeting. Give everybody a hand, please. The panelists that all spoke, including the financial programs. And Captain Burton, I want you to know that I already have 4 forms here with 11 names already committed for the community emergency response. And I've been told that my assistant has a full page waiting on you, so that's excellent. If anyone has any of the financial surveys, if you'll just hold those up or leave them on the table for me and I'll pick those up as well. Thanks everyone for coming out. God bless you all. Have a safe trip home. Thank you.